Pokemon Home compatibility is almost here for Legends ZA. However, there are some things you're going to want to know before transferring your Pokemon from Home to Pokemon Legends ZA. So let's get into it.
No way, dude! I'm dead on the inside.
So first things first, let's talk about transfer-only Pokemon. Past games have gotten transfer-only Pokemon, and pretty much these are just Pokemon that can't be caught in the game, but can be transferred over from Pokemon Home, and these Pokemon can be used in the game. Like for instance, Rayquaza came to Scarlet and Violet before it was actually available in the DLC, making it a transfer-only Pokemon. Now you might be thinking, oh, they didn't do that in Legends Arceus, why would they do that for Legends ZA? Pokemon Legends ZA is a super battle-heavy game, and they put a lot of emphasis into the ranked battles, so introducing transfer-only Pokemon would totally shake up the meta. I also think this would be cool because I feel like the Hoenn Starter Mega Stones being locked behind the ranked battle system is kind of lame, because with the DLC already being out and we're essentially waiting 4 months to get all of the Hoenn Starter Mega Stones, we would really have nothing else to look forward to. Like, we wouldn't be able to use our Mega Hoenn starters to do any like the story, stuff like that. So introducing transfer-only Pokemon, like I said, would shake up the meta, and then we might actually find like a pretty good use for our new Hoenn starter Megas. Now, a word of caution when it comes to transfer-only Pokemon. What if we transfer Pokemon that needs like an item or like to meet certain circumstances to evolve? That Pokemon may or may not be able to evolve. Let's say Clamperl is like a transfer-only Pokemon. We transfer Clamperl into ZA, there's no Deep Sea Tooth, there's no Deep Sea Scale, Clamperl can't evolve. This happened with Scarlet and Violet, however this was remedied by the auction in Porto Marinata, where an NPC actually sold evolution / form change items. So maybe we can see something similar in Pokemon Legends ZA. Now this all falls under the umbrella of transfer-only Pokemon, which we may or may not get. I have a pretty strong feeling that we will be getting at least some transfer-only Pokemon, specifically because in Pokemon Legends Arceus, once we got home compatibility for that game, we were able to transfer Pokemon from Legends Arceus to BDSP, Sword and Shield, and then eventually we were able to transfer them up to Scarlet and Violet. And we were also able to transfer those Pokemon freely. So you can go from Legends Arceus to Scarlet and Violet, and then from Scarlet and Violet to Sword and Shield to BDSP, back to Legends Arceus. However, with Legends ZA, you can't transfer to any of those games, which we'll talk more on that later. So why even bother with home compatibility if the Pokemon we already have can't go anywhere? Moving on. Let's talk about event Pokemon. Now we could see the return of the hat Pokemon, like the hat Pikachus. Another example would be the Pokeball pattern Vivian. All these past event Pokemon could potentially become available in this game. We could be able to transfer our Pokemon from Go to Legends ZA. Speaking of Pokemon Go, if you want like the legendaries and the mythicals in Legends ZA without doing any of the story stuff, you can just transfer from Go, right? Unfortunately, that's not going to work. In order for you to transfer a legendary Pokemon from Go to Home to another Pokemon game, you have to have that Pokemon's Dex entry in that game first. This was the case also in Sword and Shield, Scarlet and Violet, etc. I did a video on this a couple years ago when home compatibility came to Scarlet and Violet, and I'm sure like the concept is the same, so I'll leave a link to that video in the description of this one. So yeah, pretty much your shiny mythicals that are hanging out in Pokemon Go, or if you had already transferred them to Home, are just going to be sitting in Home, unfortunately. Speaking of shiny mythicals, we're probably going to get a shiny mythical. Once home compatibility comes to a Pokemon game, over time they release a shiny mythical for completing that game's Pokédex in Pokemon Home. So real quick, if you're watching this right now, I highly recommend going back and completing a living dex, because if you transfer like a fully evolved Pokemon from ZA to Home, it will only register that specific fully evolved Pokemon. So you need to register the other species in that evolutionary line individually. Or you can just catch the first form, transfer it to Home, send it back to ZA, evolve it, send it back to Home, take it back out, evolve it again, so on and so on. I think my recommendation is probably easier and quicker. Now you might be thinking, oh no, I don't have to do all of that. I already have these Pokemon registered in Home, so I only need to do XYZ amount of Pokemon. The caveat to these shiny mythicals is that these have to be native to the game, meaning in order to get the Legends ZA shiny mythical, every Pokemon you transfer has to be from Pokemon Legends ZA. That's more than likely going to include the Hyperspace Pokédex as well. In terms of what the shiny mythical would be, my guess would be either Volcanion or Hoopa, specifically because these two mythicals haven't had their shinies released yet. Now you might argue Magearna hasn't had its shiny released officially either. However, Pokemon Home already distributes a Magearna whenever you complete the entire Pokédex in Pokemon Home. So I doubt that they would distribute two Magearna. I've been wrong before. A lot of times, actually. Shameless plug, but whenever we get a shiny mythical challenge in Pokemon Home, I'll make a guide on how to complete that home dex pretty easily. So subscribe if you don't want to miss that. So some things to keep in mind. There are no marks or ribbons in Legends ZA. There are also no abilities. However, some Pokemon do have kind of like their baked in ability. Those are like the gimmicky Pokemon like Aegislash with like its form change, Mimikyu with its disguise, etc, etc. I highly recommend keeping a backup of a Pokemon if you need it for like a living dex on like a past game, or if you're doing a living dex in home, because like I said, Pokemon cannot go backwards once they get transferred to Legends ZA. So let's talk on that real quick. So yeah, you heard that right. Pokemon caught in ZA cannot go into past games. Even though Legends ZA is a Gen 9 game, it can't go into Scarlet and Violet. Likewise, Pokemon transferred from past games cannot return to their original game. I made a video on this a couple of months ago, and next week I'll be uploading a video about how this pretty much just introduces Dexit 2.0. So I'll be taking a deeper dive into what this means for our beloved Pokemon going forward. So subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss it. Keep that in mind when you're transferring Pokemon. Like, keep a backup of a Pokemon if you need it for a living dex or a competition or something. At time of recording, Champions still hasn't released yet, so all of ranked VGC and 7-star raid events are still going on in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So think twice before transferring your 7-star raid counters or your VGC team to Legends ZA, because they won't be able to go back. I would be surprised if they kept doing 7-star raid events up until the release of Gen 10, like they did with Sword and Shield when Scarlet and Violet was about to release. And who knows when Champions is coming out, because I thought by now we would have at least gotten a release date. Once Home becomes available for Legends ZA, I'll be answering some of your guys' burning questions, so leave a like and subscribe to the channel, especially if you found anything that I said in this video valuable at all. If not, thanks for the watch time. On a real note, thank you so much for watching. Love you. Bye.